Hello everyone, welcome back to AppDev channel. As part of the Spring Annotations series, till now we have seen couple of annotations. All these annotations we have covered: auto-wired, qualifier, component, repository, component scan. In the last video we covered it enable auto configuration and component scan. And for today's video I am picking up all these annotations: configuration, bean, Springboard application, value, configuration properties. We are picking couple of annotations, like 5 annotations we are picking for today's. It will be uh, somewhat higher count compared to our previous videos. In all our previous videos we have taken up only 1 or 2 annotations. The reason why I am taking all these annotations in a single video is all of these are related. Okay, configuration and bean are related. Enable auto configuration, component scan, configuration, bean, all these annotations uh, are related to Spring Boot application annotation. And I want to explain some real-time example where we have to use the configuration and bean annotations. For that, we need to know the details about these two annotations as well, value and configuration properties. That's why I'm picking up all these annotations to be covered in a single video. Okay, so coming to our agenda for today's video, this is the agenda. Okay, we will get to know the details about the configuration and bean annotations. What is the purpose of these annotations? We will see a basic example using this annotation, and we will know the details about Spring Boot application annotation. What is the significance? Why it was introduced by the Spring Boot framework? All those things we will get to know. Once that is covered in detail, then we will talk about the real-time scenarios where we are using configuration and bean annotations. We will take up one particular scenario, like we will develop two services. One service will be calling the other service. All those details we will see in detail. Okay, this is the agenda. Let's start with the agenda. Okay, now first topic in our agenda is what is configuration and bean annotations, right? So in order to configure your beans while you are working with the beans.xml or the XML based configuration, we generally do like this, right? We define the beans in the beans.xml and we load this beans.xml by the application context or the bean factory. That will be then all the bean management, bean lifecycle management will be taken care by the Spring container, right? That is how we configure the beans while we work with the beans.xml or the XML based configuration. But uh, but we are avoiding the XML based configuration. Then we are moving into the Java based configurations and the annotation configurations, right? So how we define the beans, that they have to be managed by the container, right? Uh, while we are working with the Java based configuration, as we are avoiding the XML based configuration. So if you want to configure the beans that are to be managed by the Spring container similar to your XML, and you want them to be managed by, you want them to configure in a Java way or the annotation way, then configuration and the beans are the two tags helpful. Okay, so at configuration is a kind of annotation that is similar to at component. Okay, similar to at component we discussed earlier, service, repository, right, and controller as well. So configuration is also one kind of annotation that instructs the Spring container to manage the beans, or to create the beans and the manage the bean lifecycle of the class that is annotated with that configuration. But what is the difference between component and configuration? The basic definition between component and configuration both are same. Component also gives an instruction to the container to manage the bean which is annotated with that component. Similarly, configuration is also same thing. the special feature coming up with configuration, right? It's not only the bean will be managed by the container, but also container looks for the methods that are defined in that class, which is annotated with at bean. Okay, if a class is annotated with that configuration, then container will looks for the methods which are annotated with at bean. Suppose if we are returning a particular class from a method, in general we write some methods and that method may return some object, right? So if at all that returned object also you want it to be managed by the Spring container, then you can annotate that method as at bean. So whatever the object that method is returning, right, that also will be managed by the bean, by the container. If at all the method is annotated with at bean and the class in which the method is present, right? If the class is annotated with at configuration. So basically configuration is a class which has the list of bean definitions. Similar to our XML is having the list of bean definitions, right? So configuration is also is a Java based approach to define the beans. And how to define the beans? We can annotate the methods which are returning some object. Those methods we can annotate with that bean. So whatever the object that is being returned by that method will be managed by the container whenever you annotate the class with that configuration and the method with that bean. Okay, that is the purpose and that is the specialized feature of coming up with the at configuration and at bean. Okay, we will see one basic example. Okay, now let me go here and see here in this project, right? This is the project which we created in the repository annotation video, where we connected to the database and got the details from database, the employee list and all, right? Or the employee save operation, we have done it. Yeah, we have done the save operation. So let me create one class here. Uh, I'll name the class as application configuration. Okay, application config. Okay, let me write like this. So I want to write a method in this class, and that method should be returning an object, and that method I want that to be managed by the container, and also I want that to be injected into any of my controller or in business or anywhere. Okay, now let me write a method public. I'm going to return a object my bin. Okay, so I'll name the method name as my bin. Okay, return a new my bin. This is just a simple object, I'm creating it. Okay, the moment I define this method with that bin and configure the class with that configuration, now what I have to do, I have to create this class now, right? My bin is written here. Okay, now there is no error. Now I declare my class with that configuration, and the method which is returning the my bin is the method name is exactly same as the class name with the lowercase the starting character. In general, if Spring container is creating a bean for your class, right, this is how it creates it. Similarly, if you want that to be created, right, the whatever the method name you are giving with this method name only, the bean will be created for your my bean class if it is annotated with at bean. Okay, now let's go back to our property file and let me uncomment this one so that I can see what all beans are being created. Let me run this. See here, okay, this is the auto configuration. Okay, which project it is running? It is running repository annotation. Let me search for my bin here. Okay, it is not giving any logs. This is giving. Okay, I am modifying it somewhere in the different project. Yeah. Let me take this one. Yeah. Let me add that here. Logging dot level dot org dot spring framework dot beans dot factory equal to debug. Then I'll be able to see the beans that are being created during the container startup. See this? Even though you have not created a specific class, here I created a class for it, but I have not annotated this class with any of that component type annotation. But rather I have created the class and created an object for it in my application config, which is annotated with that configuration, and the method is annotated with that bean. Even then, container looking for at configuration, whenever it found the at configuration on the application config, it go and checks whether any methods annotated with that bean. Yes, I'm finding this method. Then it is going to execute that method, and whatever the bean that is being returned from that method, right? So that bin it is going to create and manage it. Okay. Now we will see whether we can get it, whether the container is going to inject that automatically when I use the auto wired or not. Okay. Let's see that. Okay. For that, employee, what is that? My bean, right? My bean. This one I want to auto wire it. Okay. Now I'll see whether the bean I'm getting it or not. My bean in EMD controller. Okay. Now let me run it. For this to happen, I have to save, right? So let me go to control panel, not control panel. Postman. Okay, let me run this program again. See what happens whenever you perform the save operation. I mean, whenever the employee controller is being created, the bin is being created, the my bin will be automatically injected. That's what we have to see now. So this is my save operation, and this is the body which I have given in the earlier repository annotation video. And now I'm sending it. We'll see. Okay, that's fine. We have sent the request. We may be getting the error here. That's okay. But we just want to see whether the my bin is coming or not. Okay, see this my bin in the employee controller, it is printing it. So whatever the bin you defined here in your application config class, and that method is annotated with that bin, and the class is annotated with that configuration, is always looked up by the container and being managed by the container. Okay. So that is the basic example which I want to show the usage of at bean and at configuration. Okay. Now let us take the real-time scenarios where we use, okay, this one we have it right. Okay, what is Spring Boot application annotation? Okay, generally, right, in any starter class, okay, launch your application launcher, right? This one here we are using, okay, in this example, yeah, in this example we have used both the enable auto configuration and also the components can also, if you want the packages to be managed explicitly by the container, the different packages that we have to use it here at component scan, right? At component scan we have to use, otherwise it will be scanning for the classes in the same package where you have defined a class with that enable auto configuration. So if you want them to be managed by, if you want them to be looked up even though they are in the different packages, then we have to use the at component scan com.appdev dot some beans. Okay, so that the beans which are there in this, they will also be scanned and they will also be managed by the container if at all they are annotated with that component type annotations. That's what we have seen in the earlier enable auto configuration and component scan, right? So I'm going to add the links whatever we discussed earlier about these annotations in detail, right? The repository annotation and the enable auto configuration, enable component scan. I'm going to add those links in the description of this video so that you can go through that and get the detailed understanding of the usage of those annotations. So we have these annotations, right? Enable auto configuration, enable component scan. If you want to define some beans here to write some methods, and that method also have to write return some beans, and that bean you want to be managed by this container, then you have to use that configuration like we have seen the application config, right? Instead of writing your class here, and if you want to write the method that is returning some bean here, then you have to write configuration. So we have to write all these annotations, right? So three different annotations we have to write here. So instead of writing all these three annotations, these all are the Spring related annotations. So Spring Boot application is an annotation that is coming up with the Spring Boot framework, which is a replacement to all these three annotations. So if at all any class is defined with at Spring Boot annotation, then it will do the auto configuration what based on the classes or the jars presents in your class path. It will also does the component scan to be identified, to identify the classes that are annotated with that component and all, and it will also look for the methods which are annotated with that bean, so that it will create the beans for those uh, objects that are being returned from the methods as well. So Spring Boot annotation, a single annotation that is going to take care of all the tasks done by these three annotations. It is a replacement. Okay, so we can use at Spring Boot application directly. Okay, but even then, right? It is uh, it is default going to scan the classes which are defined with that component type annotations only in the package in which you declare the class with that Spring Boot. If and then if you want the classes to be explicitly specified, if you want the classes which are there in the package other than the root package like this, then you still have to use at component. But if at all at component scan you have to use. Okay, but if at all your classes in the same directory where your class which is annotated with that Spring Boot application, then only single annotation is enough to do all the three tasks. Okay, what are the three tasks we discussed it just now, right? It is going to auto configure based on the classes. It is going to component scan for the classes which are defined with that component at service repository at controller at rest controller. And the third point, it is also takes care of at configuration and at configuration annotation, so that it will look for the at bean methods which are annotated with at bean. Okay, all these three tasks will be done by the single annotation at Springboard, because we generally use create a Springboard application, and instead of writing all those three annotations, it is a simpler form of using the all the three functionalities with a single annotation. Okay, that's all about Springboard application annotation. Okay, now let me talk about this one. What are the real-time scenarios where we use at configuration and at bean? Here we have taken one simple example, right? We have created an application configuration, and that is one method that is returning a bean. Okay. Suppose there are scenarios where in a real-time application, enterprise applications, right? You want to connect to different services, external services, or internal microservice to microservice calls you want to do. So you have to make some HTTP client based requests, right? So in order to make HTTP requests from microservice to external services, or microservice to microservice, what is the client we have generally? We use generally in Spring framework. We use generally, it is the REST template. Okay, so if you want to use the REST template, you can directly inject that REST template as AutoAdd, and you can use it directly. But if you want some kind of customizations, like if you want the connection to be created securely by using a certificate, and you want to mention some timeout values, read timeout, connection timeout values, right? So you want to customize the REST template creation configuration, right? So then in those cases, what we can do is we can create a class like REST template configuration, like that. You can annotate that with that class with that configuration, and you can write a method that does all these customizations, and that method will be annotated with that bean. Okay, so that the whatever the configurations you have done in that particular method will be applied to your REST template, so that you the customized version of the REST template you can use. That is one example. Similarly, you can make different asynchronous calls at a time, right? So in order to make the asynchronous calls, you have to do the customized. If you want to do the customization to your asynchronous behavior, like how many threads you want to create, what is the thread pool configuration, what is the asynchronous thread name you want to give, all those customizations you want to configure, right? So if you want to do the customized, if you want to use the customized version of the asynchronous object that invokes the calls asynchronously, then you can configure it in a method, all your configuration, that method and that class will be annotated with that configuration at bean. This is another example. Okay, suppose if you are having any external databases or external caching systems, or you are having any uh, uh, external configurations and all, right? All those scenarios you can use it. Suppose if you are having any swagger related, and you want to do the swagger configuration, how the swagger file would be generated for your classes or the controllers for your microservice, basically all those endpoints you can configure. If you want to configure the swagger also, that also you can do the customization to your swagger object creation. So in all these scenarios, we can use the at configuration at bean. Okay. So for today's video, we are going to take up one scenario, that is making one microservice call, making a call to another microservice. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to develop two services. Okay. One service HTTP colon localhost colon 8081 slash emp slash, that's it. What this service will do, this gives me all employee details. Okay, now I'm going to write a separate microservice that is running under localhost colon 8080. Okay, that's it. This is a different microservice, like this is an employee microservice, and this is my utility microservice. Okay, utility microservice. So, or else you can name it alternatively. This is utility microservice, and this is employee microservice. So, these two services I am going to build it. Okay, and this service connects to database with to MySQL database and gets all employee details. That's it. It runs independently. Okay, but this service, right? This is coupled with the utility microservice. In order to get this response to this service, we have to call this service. Okay, employee microservice should be calling this utility microservice. Okay, so that it connects to this service whenever it is running and gets the details and gives it to the clients. There are scenarios, right, where we need the employee, where we need the microservice to microservice communication. Suppose, for example, if you are doing all the kind of profile operations, profile updates, or the employee related operations in one microservice, but your application is having different modules that needs the employee data, right? So you may be, suppose your application is having different modules like employee module, transaction module, or the HR module, okay, like this. So if at all any microservice is calling employee, right, so you can call the employee microservice. If at all you need the details of employee details, you can call the employee microservice. Transaction also, I need, along with the transaction, I need the employee details as well. So as I already have the employee microservice, which is giving me the employee details, so so why should I write again the logic to get the employee details in the transaction microservice? Instead of writing the new logic, the same existing logic in the transaction, as already we are having the microservice existing to get the employee details, so we can call that employee microservice from transaction microservice. Okay, so in those scenarios we need microservice to microservice communication. Okay. Similarly, not only microservice to microservice communication, but if microservice wants to connect to external APIs or external services, that there also, in those scenarios also, we use the REST template to invoke the services, external or internal microservices. Okay. So let's start with this example. What I'm going to do is, see here, our repository annotation is already having some kind of logic, right? This project is having logic to save the details. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a method to this to get the employee details. Okay, I'm not going to create any new service from scratch, but I'll use the existing service which we have used in the repository annotation series, but the methods I will be writing newly. Okay, so this method I want to get all employee details. So public get employee list. Okay, this is not accepting any arguments, but this is returning some response list of employee details. Okay, list of employee objects. So I want to create a employee list response. Okay, this is the return type of this method. So what is the annotation? What is the path for this at the date request mapping? I'm going to use it. So if at all the URL is having slash employee slash, that's it. Then I'll put it here. If at all my URL is having localhost 8080 slash emp slash 1, then I have to call a method to database and get the details and put that employee list in the employee list response and return it to the client. Okay, now uh, what I'm going to do is I have the EMP business already, right? So EMP business, I'm going to write a method get employee list. Okay, so whatever is returned from this method, I'm going to return it. So in EMP business, I'm going to write a method public employee list response. This is not going to accept anything. And here I'm EMP service dot. I'm going to write a method in employee service get employee list, because we are following some kind of coding structure, right? This is how we do in real time. We are not. We can do this all this getting the data from directly from backend in the controller itself, but that is not the way we do generally, right? We should not be having any business logic in the controller. We should be having only the business logic and the service related calls only in the other classes, like they are annotated with that service, right? So let me go here. Yeah, here I'm going to write a method public employee list service list response uh, get employee list. Okay, here we are using the repository, right? Employee repository dot, there should be one method find all. Yeah, so if I use find all, it gives me what it gives me the list of objects. Okay, but I want to return employee list response object here, right? Okay, let me create the employee list response object now. Employee list response. Okay, now here what I need to return list of employee objects, employee list. Okay, now let me generate setter and getters for this. Okay, now this is my return object from this service. Okay, but this method is giving me the list of objects, right? So what I have to do is I have to take accept that list of employee objects into emp list here, and I have to create employee list response. Okay, employee list response, right? We already created a class for it. I want that to be injected here, employee list response. Okay, I'll annotate that with that auto wire. Now this employee list is there, right? This employee list, I have to add this to employee list response dot set employee list. To this I have to pass the emp list which I returned, which I received from the back database. Okay, now I have to return this return employee list response. Okay, this is fine, right? So service is actually connecting to the database with this employee repository and getting the employee list and adding it to the employee list response. Okay, so employee list response is being invoked from the employee business, right? Right. So here what we are getting employee list response. For this one, get employee list is the method. Here we have to return whatever we are getting from the service. Okay, this business we are calling from controller, right? See, employee, we are returning whatever we are getting from the service. Now what I'll do is I'll run this program and see whether I'm getting the data or not. Okay, there is a problem here. Employee service required a bean of type employee list response. Yep. Employee service we want the container automatically inject this bean, but we have not annotated this class with that component or at service. This is just a bean, right? We don't need any special features. So I am mentioning it as at component. So it is connecting to the database. The application is running now. Now let me run this. What is our get employee list endpoint URL /emp/. That's it, right? Let me modify this to get. Let me give none. Yep, it has connected to the database and it is giving me the results, whatever the data we inserted, whatever the data that is present in the database. Okay, so it is giving me the list of employee details. So what is our agenda here? All employee details. This is done. Except this one. We want this to be running on 8081, right? So for that, what we have to do is, let me close this. Okay, this is our program, right? So we have to change the port number. What is, if you want to change the port number of your Tomcat server, then you have to go to your particular application properties, and there is a property server.port is equal to 8081. Okay, you can change it to any available port. Okay, let me run it again. Right, now let me run it now. See, this is not giving because the application is not running on 8080 but on 8081. It will be giving yes. Okay, that's all about the first part. Now we have to create another microservice that just invokes this microservice and gets the data. Okay, now let me create another microservice. Let me close everything from here. We are done with the first part. Let me create another microservice. I'm going to give the name as REST configuration. Otherwise, I'll give just configuration. Okay, I'm going to use 8 configuration bean. Okay, now what all packages, what all dependencies I need? I need web dependency. Okay, uh, I also need a dependency because this microservice has to call the repository annotation microservice, right? So I need a dependency to call to make HTTP client calls. So there is a dependency, I think components, yeah, that we are not getting from the starter dependencies. We will add it in this pom.xml directly. Okay. Now, yeah, let's go ahead. Web dependency is enough. Let's go ahead and run it because this service is not connecting to the database, right? So it is just a client. So the project is created. Now what we will do is we will create a controller now first. Okay, this one I will mention as okay, utility controller or util controller. Okay, here in our example as well, I'll mention it as util, and here I'll mention as employee. This one as util, and this one as employee. This is going to utilize it, right? Okay, now util controller I'll mention. Here what I'm going to do is I have to annotate this util controller with a REST controller, because it is going to accept it to get the response, and it is going to act as the REST controller. Now this one should be having a method along with the REST controller. I want to have a request mapping as well, like util. Okay, slash util, yeah, slash util. Here I have to write a method, okay, that again should return the employee list response. Okay, because we are going to get the employee list response from your source microservice, right? So we have to accept it. So get employee list. So here employee business, I'm going to write a method with get employee list. Okay, now this employee business we have to create it, right? We will create it. Employee business, we have to auto wire it, right? Okay, let me create this employee business first. We have created it. We want this, we are going to write some business logic, right? So we want this to be at service. So public, this method also employee list response will return get employee list, but this one this will again going to connect to employee service, or instead of employee business, let me write this as util business here. Okay, refactor, rename, because this is a util microservice, right? So similarly, okay, right here util service we are going to write, and that also will be having a method employee list. Okay, that one we will return from here. Again, we have to write util service, and its reference variable name is util service. We have to auto wire it at auto wired. We have to create the util service class, right? So this again, we have to annotate with that service, because this is going to make the service call. Public employee list response get employee list. Okay, what this is going to do is we will create one more. Okay, see here, this has to actually connect to this microservice which is already running and giving us the employee details, right? 6 repository annotation that is running on the URL localhost 8081. So it has to connect to that. So what I'm going to do is first let me create a employee list response. Employee list response. Yep. What this employee list response is having, it is having same thing, private list of employee. Okay, emp list. Now what I'll do is I'll create a setter and getter for this. Again, we need employee class as well, right? So let me copy that employee class from here in our earlier project. Copy. Let me paste it here. Okay. Now let me import it. So employee list response is fine. Util service, we have to return this. Okay, util business is okay. Util controller, okay, let me import this. Why employee business is not finding? Okay, this is util business, right? And we have to annotate this method also at request mapping, just slash. Okay, why is this? Okay, we have to add a return statement, whatever response we have to return it. Okay, now okay, this has to connect to the this microservice, right? Repository annotation microservice. So we have to make a call here. Okay, so in order to make a call, we have to use REST template. So REST template is equal to new REST template. See here, if you see this REST template is having zero argument constructor and the client HTTP request factory constructor, everything, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this client HTTP request factory. Okay, here to this we have to pass new HTTP components client HTTP request factory. This is how we create it, a REST template object using the uh, client HTTP request factory. Okay, that's fine now. So we got the REST template object now, and on REST template we have a method to call any HTTP methods, right? See this, I'll take this one. We have to pass a URL, we have to pass specify the method, we have to specify the request entity like headers or body, and the response type also we have to specify in this method. So first URL, okay, exchange, right? We have to specify, I'm going to take this. So we have to specify the URL here. Okay. So for URL, let me just mention HTTP colon localhost colon 808. It is running on 8081, right? Slash emp slash. That's it. After URL, what we have to specify? We have to specify the method HTTP method dot get call. That is a get call, right? Yep. Next, we have to specify the headers and the return type. We don't need this one. Headers and return type. Headers mean basically the request body. If at all the request body, if it is a post request, then the request body will be there. But for get request, request body will not be there. But we have to specify the headers as well. So what can in headers, right? In request headers, so we can specify what is the content type. All those things we will specify, right? So for that we have to instantiate HTTP headers class. HTTP headers is equal to new HTTP headers. Okay, so we have to specify the content type, set content type. We are going to accept the JSON. Okay, so this headers we have to pass it as a third argument. And the fourth argument is the response type. Okay, what we need as a response type, we need employee list response, right? That is the response we are getting from the first microservice. Okay, so that's all. Why is this is giving me an error now? The method string HTTP method in the REST template is not applicable for arguments. String, HTTP method, HTTP headers. Okay. What we have to do is, here we should not be passing the headers. Instead, we have to pass an entity, because entity will be a combination of both request body and headers, right? So that entity we have to pass it here. HTTP entity is another class we have to use. Entity is equal to new HTTP entity. We don't have any request body, right? So we specify null, and whatever the headers we have to pass it here, so that the entity object will be created. So here, instead of headers, we specify entity. Now, whatever the response, I'm getting it right. So that will be response entity. If you see this, this is returning and return the response as response entity. So we have to capture it in the response entity. And that response entity should be having employee list response of type employee list response. Okay. Now, here from response, what we have to get is, we have to get the body first. Okay. And that body will be employee list response directly. So we have to return it now. That's it. Okay. So this is a most basic version of anyone who wants to use REST template. Okay. To call any microservice or any service URL. There is no customization here. We are not yet using any configuration tag or bean tag here. Okay, we will do all those customizations in a while, but this is the most basic version. Okay, we are creating the REST template, we are creating the headers as application JSON, and we are creating an entity, and we are passing the service URL and the method and the request entity, which contains body and the headers, and we are specifying what is the type of response we are expecting from the source service. Okay, now while that 8081 repository annotation is running, let me run this program as well. Okay, but here is a problem. Let me check. Yeah, this is the one we copied, right? So we don't need anything here, because we are not doing any database operations here, right? So we don't need it. So there is a problem still. Okay, good. So we have the employee class. We just need a component, right? Okay. Next, so what it is going to do, it accepts the request. Util controller will accept the request as util slash. Util business will be coming into picture. Util service will be coming into picture. Then util service will be making a call to employee list. This microservice 8081 microservice. Okay, now let me run this program now. This project, this microservice. Still 8081 is running, guys. Okay. Now this is running on. Okay, this is still running it. 6 only. Okay, let me run this program. 8080 is already in use. Why it is giving 8080? Because we are running. Okay, let me stop everything. Let me go here and see what is there in the port. Here 8081, this is fine. Let me run this one now. Okay, let me run like this, so that it will stop and starts the server. Okay, it is running on 8081. Let me hit a request directly from here. Okay, it is fine. Now let me run this. This should be running on 8080. Yeah, so it is running, right? So what is the service URL? Util, just util, right? It is running on 8080. There is a problem. It is not connecting, it seems. Yep. What is the error we are getting here? HTTP client not found. So for this to resolve, we have to add some dependency here in our pom.xml to for the HTTP client or HTTP components. Yeah. What is the dependency I'm going to add? It is the group ID org.apache.http components. That's it. And artifact ID. What is the artifact ID? HTTP client. And we will specify the version as well. What version you need? 4.5.2. Now it is going to import all the libraries. Now let me run this again. Relaunch. I want this to be relaunched. Okay, it is running now. Did I save it? Yep, I saved it here. Okay, so it is connecting to that, but it is coming as empty. Why it is coming as empty, that we will see. So when I invoke my util service, which is running on 8080 and which is a second service, is connecting to that first service, employee service, which is running on 8081, but it is not getting the response, or it is getting the response properly, but it is not able to parse it properly. Okay, this is the response we are getting, right? Okay, but if I invoke that first service, the EMP service directly, it is giving us the response properly. So the problem here is, see this is coming as employee list from the employee service, but if I invoke this service, it is accepting it as EMP list. That's the problem. So the source service is giving the response as employee list, but you are expecting that it should be EMP list. That's why the object is not getting mapped properly. So in order to avoid this problem, we have to have the similar object structure. This employee list response is there, right? Whatever the object that was written here, whatever the class source code that was written in the source, that should be same. We should be having the same in destination, the second service as well. See here we are expecting it should be EMP list. So to avoid this problem, what I'll do is I'll just copy paste everything from there to here, from source to destination, so that whatever the response that is generated at the source service will be mapped properly to the destination service, the second service. So I modified the configuration, right? Let me restart it now. Configuration microservice. It is started. Now let me hit this service. See, this is the second service which we have created now, and it is connecting to employee list service and it is getting the data. Okay, this is the way we are connecting one microservice to another microservice. Okay, so in the second microservice, we don't have any logic to connect to the database. So all employee related operations or the database interactions will be done from our first service, which is the repository annotation here in this case. which is connecting to the database. But whenever you need any employee details from the database for any other microservices, in our case, which is the configuration microservice, we are calling that service the employee service from util service like this. Okay, here we are using the REST template. So this is one way we communicate between microservices. Okay, but here couple of problems are there. Okay, the first problem is, suppose if I have another method to save an employee. Again, save employee operation I have available already in the repository annotation microservice in this source microservice itself, right? So I can utilize the microservice, this microservice, if the save employee operation is required by my util microservice, util controller. So I have to, what I have to do then, in the util service, I have to write one more method, save employee. I have to create this REST template again. I have to create the headers again. So all this lot of logic we have to write it. Suppose if you are having some n number of methods, you have to create the REST template in all those methods n number of times. So to avoid that problem, we should be having one separate class which configures your REST template, your HTTP headers. Okay, so that class we will annotate with at configuration, and we will write a method to return this REST template and to return these HTTP headers. Those methods we have to annotate with at bean. Okay, now let me write that class now in our source class destination second microservice. I'm going to create REST template config. Okay, and I'm going to provide a method that returns REST template here. Okay, let me write a method public. It should return me the REST template, right? And its service, I mean its method name. We have to give a method name, right? I'll give the method name as REST template only. Okay, we can give whatever name, but while if you want to use this bean in your service class, you have to auto-wire by that name. Okay, otherwise it is going to create, the bean will be created with this name for this REST template object. So whatever the logic we have written in employee service, right? Not here. Where is that? In util service. To create a REST template, I am going to cut it off from here and I'll put it there. Okay, and I'll just return REST template. So this is giving me the REST template object. So I want this class to be managed as a bean by the container. So I'm giving the add bean. Okay, so as and when it is having a method with add bean, we have to annotate with that configuration. Then only container will look for the at bean methods in your configuration annotated class, right? So at configuration I'm using, at bean I'm using, it is returning me the REST template. Similarly, where is that util service, right? Here also I have the headers section, right? I'll comment this one from here and I'll put a method, new method here that returns HTTP headers. Okay, HTTP headers. Here I'll put that logic and I'll just return HTTP headers or headers, just headers. Okay. Now here this HTTP headers also I want this has to be managed by the container. So I have to give it a at bean so that whatever the object we prepared here, right, it will be created as a bean and managed as a bean by the container during container startup itself. Okay. So container, whenever it looks at the configuration, it is going to configure the REST template and going to create a bean for it. It is going to configure the HTTP headers based on the code or logic we have written in this method, and it is going to create a bean for it. Okay, now in our util service class, what we have to do? We have to similarly, whenever we are having some dependencies, right? We have to instruct the container to automatically inject them into our util service class. So my class currently dependent on REST template and the headers. So I have already configured them here. REST template, sorry, REST template as REST template. Okay, here I have to auto wire it, right? At auto wired. Similarly, I am dependent on headers as well, right? HTTP headers. This also I want auto wired. Okay. Now we are not creating the REST template in each and every method. Further, rather we created here it in the configuration class. We are just using it. So how many methods you have dependencies with the REST template and headers? You can directly use them because you have created them only once here. Okay. So let me run this program, this project or this microservice again. 8 configuration. Yeah, yeah, it is all started. Let me, okay, this is the 8081, right? Okay, this is my util. Okay, so now it is getting it. Similarly, even without REST template configuration class as well, we have seen the example. It is working fine, right? After we uh, replace the employee list response from source to destination microservice, from one microservice to client microservice. Okay, now with the REST template configuration being done in a configuration class, we don't have to repeat the creation of those classes here in every method here. If at all you are having so many methods, you just have to use which are auto wired already. Okay, even then we are getting the response properly. This is good. Okay, but this is just we are using still the default object, right? But we are not using any customized version. We can use it for testing purpose, but in enterprise grade services we just don't use the default objects like this. We have to do some further customizations, like if you want the connection uh, to be used or to be going through via certificate based communication, you have to generate the jks file and you have to get the uh, url and the password from the jks, and you have to create the http client or the component client http request factory from that username and password. And you can also mention the thread pools, how many max connections you have to use. All those things you can also mention. All those customizations we have to do. How many threads we have to configure, how many threads per service, how many threads per your module, all those things you have to mention. Along with that, we also have to mention the connection timeout, read timeout, connection request timeout values also while you configure the REST template. Because suppose if my microservice is connecting to this this employee microservice, right? Repository annotation, employee controller, it is giving me the data. Suppose, for example, this service is taking more time, like in general it responds within 1 2 seconds. Okay, but so due to some database connectivity issue or some network issue, it is not responding within 1 2 seconds. I mean, it is going to take some more than 30 seconds, 50 seconds, 100 seconds as well. In those cases, whatever requests are coming uh, from your configuration service, from your this to destination service to your repository annotation service, this employee service, all those services or the request will get piled up. Okay, if you are keep on waiting for the response to be coming from the database or from this service, if your service is waiting like this, right, then all your requests will get piled up here. Then the server may be going into unusable state, and also the application may be crashing. Okay, so you should not be waiting for a service for indefinite amount of time, indefinite duration of time. In enterprise grade services, we should be defining some kind of connection timeout, request timeout, and the read timeout values. Okay, so we have to do some customization to our REST template. Okay, that customization we will see now. See, this is my application.properties file, right? So what I'll do is I will create a couple of properties here: service dot employee dot list dot. I have to mention connection hyphen request hyphen timeout. This is connection hyphen request hyphen timeout, right? This is the predefined property. Okay, we have to use it, but this is the one which we are having it as prefix service dot employee dot list. We can use it anyway, whatever the name we need. Okay, but this is the predefined one. So I don't want to wait for those many seconds. Suppose if my destination service is taking 2 minutes or 5 minutes, I don't want to wait. Okay, I want to wait only for the connection establishment, only for 6000 milliseconds. Okay, similarly, uh, employee.list.connection timeout. Okay, connect timeout will be there. Connect underscore timeout is equal to 6000 milliseconds. Similarly, service.employee.list.read timeout. Okay, connect hyphen timeout, read hyphen timeout is equal to 6000. So I will tell you the difference between these three timeouts. Connection request timeout, right? Suppose as we are creating a REST template here, right? So the HTTP connection pool will be created. Okay, from that connection pool, I want to wait for only 6 seconds to get the connection, so that it will be used by to invoke this service. Okay, whatever the one we have written here, right? Here we are using the connection, so I will wait only for 6 seconds to get the connection from the connection pool for the HTTP connection pool. Okay, so once I get the connection, I'll try to connect to this particular service which is running on 8081, my destination service. I'll wait for only 6 seconds. Okay, that is connect timeout. Connection request timeout is to get a connection from the pool. Connect timeout is to get a connection to the destination service or the target service. Once the connection is established, I'll wait for only 6 seconds. Okay, I will wait for only 6 seconds to read the response. Okay, so this way we are configuring the service, we are configuring the timeout values for your service, right? So we have not yet injected them here. Okay, REST template is still using, where is the REST template configuration? REST template is still using your default object only. Suppose in the default object scenario, if you try to connect to your service where it is taking so much time, right? See here, this is our source service or the destination service, right? In employee service it is connecting to database. Here what I'll do is I'll put a sleep here. Okay, I don't want to respond till 30 seconds. Okay, earlier we have seen it is responding within 1 second, right? We will see that now difference. Okay, see this is 8080, this is second service, it is connecting, it is giving the response within 29 milliseconds. Even if you connect to the destination service which is running on employee controller, 13 milliseconds it is giving. Okay, so there is no problem here because we have not mentioned any thread or sleep. We are intentionally stopping it. Okay, just to replicate the behavior of the service responsiveness. Okay, service slowness. Now what I'll do is I'll start the service, the destination service which is connecting to the database. Okay, now whenever I invoke a request from here, from where? From second service, which is 8080 util. See this, it is not getting the response back because we are holding that thread there. Okay, it will wait for 30 seconds, then only it gives the response. So in real time scenario, if any issues with the backend, it will keep on waiting to get the data from the database, the destination service, the utils EMP service. So we should not be waiting that much time, right? So to avoid that problem, either we have to define these properties here. See this, we got the response now after 30 seconds. Now what I have to do is I don't want to wait for 30 seconds. Okay, whatever it is the response, even if you are failing, you have to, I will wait for only for 6 seconds. Okay, that is the configuration we mentioned here. Okay, but how to instruct the service or the HTTP client only wait for 6 seconds. Okay, that we have to do that customization here. Okay, now here this is the HTTP component factory, right? So I'll create a method again. Okay, public, and this method will return that. Okay, HTTP, and that is the same as the class name. Okay, what I'll do is I have the properties here, right, in this file. So if you look at this HTTP component client factory, just use that. Okay, we'll see. Okay, factory, right? Factory dot. If you see that it is having a methods set connection request timeout, set connect timeout, set read timeout. So all these three methods are there already on your HTTP components client request, HTTP request factory. So what we have to do is we have to provide the properties which are defined here to this method. Okay, so if at all any properties you want to inject into a method that is annotated with at bean, right? So whatever properties you inject from properties file into your method with some annotation, all those properties will be injected into the object that is returned from the method which is annotated with at bean. Okay, what I'm saying is, suppose we have an annotation here, configuration properties. Okay, configuration properties. What it will do is it will try to check for properties in the property file, application property file, which are having a prefix service dot employee dot list. Okay, so it will look at the property file, all the properties which are having the prefix, all these three properties, right? Service dot employee dot list. So whatever the properties which are having this prefix will be injected into an object that is returned from this method, and that method should be annotated with @bean. Okay, so that is the detail about information about the configuration properties. So what all annotations we have covered, guys? We covered configuration, bean, Springboard application, and configuration properties as well. We will come to this annotation in a while. Okay, so for now, my HTTP client object, client HTTP request factory, right? It will just return this object. Okay, the new object. But while creating this object, whatever the properties I mentioned here with at configuration properties, they will be called. Okay, they will be used on the whatever the setter methods we have, right? Those setter methods will be called, and the properties mentioned with these properties will be injected into those methods into your HTTP request factory. So here, this is one kind of customization, one step of customization. Okay, now what I have to do is I don't have to create an instance here. Okay, I just have to call that method. So whenever you call that method, that HTTP components client HTTP request factory is already created with the custom configuration you mentioned in these properties during the container startup. Okay, so now if you hit the service which is holding all your requests for 30 seconds, you should not be waiting. Your service will not be waiting for 30 seconds because you mentioned I will wait for only for 6 seconds. Okay, now what I'll do is I'll start our second service configuration. Now let's see 8080 util. Okay, so this is our second service, right? This is connecting to EMP. This is where we modified or we applied the read timeout values on this service only. When this service is making a call to the service which is running on 8081 EMP. Okay, now let's see whether we are getting any error response after 6 seconds. We'll see this. It waited only for 6 seconds and it is giving the internal server error. What is the error we see? We'll see it. See this socket read timeout error. We are able to connect to the service, but we are not getting the response back from the service. This way, your application will not go in the hung state. Okay, but whatever the error response will you are getting, right, you have to handle it and show a proper error message to the end user. Okay, this is one step of customization we do generally for any service invocation from microservice. Either it is an external service or it is a database service or it is a another microservice. Okay, there are some other customizations as I mentioned here earlier, right? uh, Suppose this HTTP client component we mentioned now the read timeout values. Suppose if you want to mention the thread pool size per module and per each per service URL, those things also you can mention. Okay, this I think this will be having some HTTP client. Okay, this will accept some HTTP client, and that HTTP client also you have some methods to mention the max connection pool, max connection per route. Okay, those methods are there. Those methods also you can use to customize the thread pool size. Okay, similarly if you want to do a certificate based communication with your service like HTTPS URL, those things also you have to use. You can use it here in this customization. Okay, so that is one thing. Okay, next we will go to our agenda once. So customize the REST template with that bean. Talk about config. We talked about all these things, right? Use default REST template. Yes. So even more customizations. Also, we talked about it, right? The read timeout, connection request timeout. We discussed in detail with an example, and we talked in detail about other customizations we can do, like thread pool size and all everything. Okay. Now, now there is another annotation which we are left out, right? which is value. Okay, so here if you see in your service class, where is the service? Util service, right? See here, here we are using the service URL directly. Suppose if you changed anywhere, the service URL is changed in future from EMP to or EMP slash EMP list, then you have to change your Java code again. So if you are changing your Java code, you have to test the whole application again, right? Because it has to be tested if you are moving, even if it is a online change, right? So what we have to do is, in real-time scenarios, we have to mention these service URLs also in a property file. Okay, so what is my property here? Service dot employee dot list dot URL is my property. Okay, now I have to inject this property and its this property value into the service, right? EMP list service. So I want this EMP list service variable, service URL variable should be having that URL. Okay. What I will do is I will create a variable at the class level. Okay. Private string EMP list URL. But how can I inject the value which is there in the property file into this class using at value annotation? Okay, at value is an annotation which is helpful to inject the values from your property file, or to define some default values, or to define some value to your variable at the class level variable. Okay, so for that we have to pass the value that is coming from property file. The way we access the value or the variable value from a property file is like this. We have to put it in the double quotes and we have to use the expression dollar, the same whatever the property name we have it, right? Service dot employee dot list dot URL. Okay, so I have created that variable and I am getting the variable value being injected into the property file by the container using the value annotation, and I am using it here. Okay, now let me run this 8 again. Okay, before I run it, right, what I have to do, I have to remove that waiting logic here. Where is that? Yeah, let me comment this. Let me run this again. 6 is running. Once it is up, I will run 8 also. 6 is running on 8081 here. Now let me run 8 also. So 8 is running on 8080. Now if I go to Postman and if I hit 8081 directly, which is EMP, see it is giving me the response immediately. Now I'll test our at value property, whether it is being injected properly or not. 8080 util, right? Yep, 8080 util is taking the request from your postman, from your client, and controller is being executed, business is being executed, service, when it comes to service, during the service object creation itself, the dependencies will be injected, right? So whatever the property that was defined here, that is coming into this variable, and that we are using whenever we hit emp slash util slash 8080 slash util slash. Okay, so this way we will avoid the hard coding of the URLs in your Java code. We will, if at all it is changed, we just have to change the property file. That kind of testing we do and the kind of changes we do are minimal and are on the safe side. If at all you changing a property file is always safer rather than changing your Java code. Okay, so we pretty much covered everything, right? and we cover the real-time example as well. Okay, that's all for today. Thank you for watching. We will meet in the next video with another functionality or another set of annotations. Thank you for watching again. Please give it a like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.